This is the Lighting Fires podcast, supported by Henley Business School. So I've had a break from releasing episodes as I've had a horrible flu-type illness for the last 3 weeks, which has really affected my voice. You might still be able to detect the little croak in it, and the good old British rainy weather pretty much sums up how I've been feeling lately. So I have just been listening back to this next episode with Sarah Ciccolallo, where we talk about her journey from manager to board director and the coaching work that we did at that time. One of the key topics is imposter syndrome. It comes up a lot in my work, and some of the really useful tools and techniques that Sarah used to overcome that thinking. We also talk about delegation and having really honest conversations that bring about positive outcomes for both parties. Also, we talk about decluttering our lives, our diaries, our inboxes, and that feels very timely for this point in the year. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, please like and share the episode with others, and I shall now let you have a listen. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Sarah Ciccolallo, and answers on a postcard on how you spell that at the end. I'm Italian, clearly, and I've been in this country for 27 years, and I consider myself British. I work for Redwell, and it's a medical education provider, particularly for primary care at the moment, but we are branching out to other sectors like dentists recently, and who knows what's going to be next. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and I've been there for 10 years, and in my 10 years I have moved across several different roles, starting as a marketing manager, then commercial director, and now this latest role.
Thank you. And tell us a little bit more about your backstory, so what you did before you came to Redwell.
So I came to this country when I was 26-year-old. Now that gives away my age, I think. Never mind. And I have worked first in a few admin roles, and then I managed to work for a large corporate organization. It was Procter & Gamble, and I was working on the Wella brand, which is the hair care brand. And I did that for about 8 years. And when I got pregnant with my first and only child, I also took advantage of an opportunity to take voluntary redundancy and spent 3 years at home with my baby, which I thoroughly enjoyed. In that 3 years also, sadly, my dad fell ill with cancer, and I looked after him and until he passed away. And after he passed away, I wanted to go back into the workforce, and I also wanted to do something that was a little bit more meaningful than simply going back to beauty and hair care. I wanted to make a difference, and given the treatment that my dad had received from the NHS, I wanted to try and get involved with the NHS. I'm not a doctor, I'm not clinical, so the avenues to do that were quite limited, but it felt a little bit serendipitous that an advert for Redwell came along, because with my background in marketing and brand, I could really help a small company to grow and become what it is today. So that's what happened.
Oh, thank you. And I seem to remember you telling me that it's quite difficult to become a brand manager, whether it's something
Procter & Gamble.
Procter & Gamble, that it's quite a small proportion of people make it to that.
Yeah, and particularly, I think for me, I was particularly proud of the fact that I became a brand manager having come from an acquisition. So I didn't get the whole nurturing journey that P&G give to the people that bring them in from like graduate level. So I missed that step, and I got acquired. And after I got acquired, I then got promoted to brand manager, which was particularly good for my self-esteem at the time. But then 3 years out of the workforce in marketing is a long time, and by the time I went back to work, that had vanished a little bit.
Yeah. I deliberately mentioned that because I think you're one of the most modest people I know, and so I thought that perhaps I would just
I don't know about that.
Anyway, so we met quite a few years ago now.
I think about 10 years ago.
Yeah. So we've been on a kind of journey of coaching, and then we've done some other things together since, and then just kept in touch, which has been really nice. So could you tell us, why did you come to coaching?
So about 10 years ago, I was at Red Whale. I've been at Red Whale for maybe a year or so, and I got promoted to become a board director at Red Whale. It was my first board director role. And to be honest, my imposter syndrome kicked in. You say I'm modest. I don't think I am modest, but I do have imposter syndrome. And I wanted to feel some reassurance that I was actually the right person for the job. I guess I didn't know at the time that is what it was, and it's only looking at it retrospectively that I realized. And my boss at the time, the chief executive, I think he recognized that, and he offered me the opportunity to get some coaching, and I went along with it because I thought it would be actually a good experience. I'd never done it before, and he knew you, and he felt that you would be a good match for me, and I think he was absolutely right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he thought and still thinks really highly of you. He obviously really wanted to invest in you and support you. So how was the imposter syndrome showing up? You know, what was that like for you?
For me, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to achieve that. However, it's sort of, over the years, I've also read a lot of books, and, totally subscribed to Carol Dweck's growth mindset. I was then able to think, okay, I might not be able to do that yet, but there might be a way for me to do it. And that's where I think the coaching helped. I was trying to influence what I could, and another great book that I read, and I was trying to therefore give myself this time and the space to dedicate to the things that I needed to do rather than the things that I had been doing up until that point.
Okay, yeah.
I think one important thing that I learned from the experience of moving from a manager to a director is that it's a lot more difficult if you don't actually support that person from the bottom up, that you need to be able to backfill what they were doing in their role before. Otherwise, what all they'll be doing is, the same job with a different title. Yeah. And so I needed to shift that. I needed to move away from that mindset that I still had to do the same job with a different title. Yeah. And so I came to you with issues like how do I delegate? How do I have difficult conversation with people? How do I declutter my diary, my life, my everything, in order to give myself that time and space.
Yes, and I remember you saying that you really wanted to do the strategic thinking for the role, but you just didn't have the time, and you had to make space to do that thinking, and then to find ways to communicate that effectively. So tell me, what happened during the coaching that was useful for the imposter syndrome?
Oh, so many things. I mean, where do I start? I mean, first of all, you gave me a Myers-Briggs assessment, which gave me some insights into how I operate, how I like to work. And for example, it made me realize that I'm an extrovert and that I like to think things through by talking to people and discussing them and so on. And that sort of helped me then to relate better to my colleagues. I could see, for example, other colleagues that weren't like me or others that were, and therefore it sort of helped me to relate to them. You gave me a lot of tips on having difficult conversations, including how to say no to people. And some of these difficult conversations had quite interesting results. You helped me with delegation. You shared with me some content about how to delegate better. And what I found with you that I really, really valued was I could come to you for that hour and I could solely focus on me, on my issue. You were, totally dedicated to help me solve that problem, and you were my bouncing board. And we were doing role plays. I remember, for example, the chair exercise where I would change the seat to respond to my own statements. And it's really having that time with someone who understood me, because you did so instantly, that gave me the confidence to be able to go and then do those things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Gosh, there's so much in there that we could unpack, isn't there? If you're listening to this and you're interested in training as a coach, I can highly recommend the Professional Certificate in Executive Coaching, or even the Masters at Henley Business School. It is the best investment I have made in myself and my business. The course is led by research, so it has academic rigour, and the tools and techniques you learn are highly practical. You get the opportunities to practice, you build confidence. I also gained friendships for life, a community that's continued to support me. I can highly recommend it. So if you decide to take the plunge and contact Henley about the certificate programme, do mention the Lighting Fires podcast.
The little things I really remember that came out of our conversations were, for example, you were helping me to say no, and you sort of cajole it out of me. You don't necessarily suggest it, but you cajole it out of me. And I said, what if I put a stop sign on my wall just in front of my screen? I work from home, so it's easier for me to be able to do that. So I thought, I'll get my daughter to draw it. She's a keen artist, so I'll get my daughter to draw it. And I put a stop sign. Now, every time someone comes to me with a question, I'll look at the stop sign and I will sort of refrain from coming up with an answer straight away. And then things like, for example, we were talking about clutter and my terrible management of my inbox. I still am terrible at managing my inbox, I have to say. But one of the suggestions that came out of one of our conversations was to basically take the whole inbox, lock, stock and barrel, and move it into an archive, and then see how many times I needed to refer back to that archive over the next few months. And if I didn't, then no need to keep it. And so at the beginning of the year, on the 2nd of January, I would go in every year and just do that exercise, and then varying degree of success in trying to keep it that way. But it was really quite a good cleansing opportunity.
Do I've done something similar recently, actually, because my kind of personal inbox had just got so overwhelming. And then I remembered what you had done. And I also remember you telling me that you had moved 16,000 emails.
Yeah.
It's just such a phenomenal number. I love that. But it really worked, didn't it?
Yeah. And I didn't actually have to go back to them once.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I have actually heard somebody I used to work with at Microsoft, every time he came back from holiday, he would actually delete all the emails that he'd had when he was away. And I was like, I couldn't go that far.
No, I don't think I could go that far either, but yeah.
Interesting. So going back to the stop sign, so we were working on the topic of delegation, and I think we've been working on it, kind of chipping away at it for quite a long period of time, because I think, when we first met, I remember you saying that you kind of get into problem solving really fast. You're very analytical. So you've kind of solved the problem, even before people have finished telling you. Yeah. And so we'd been trying different tools and techniques and conversations, but this really stood out in my mind. At the moment that you thought about creating this very visual sign, this stop sign that you could see and it would stop you, and you could then turn the question back round to the person who was asking for your help.
Yeah.
That really seemed to make a difference on the topic of delegation. That seemed to be the moment that things changed.
Yes, and also helped me create the opportunity for some development and personal growth for the person who was asking the question. I sort of took that a step further, and probably because of another conversation we had, and now I have a checklist when I have a new starter. I have a series of questions that I asked them to fill in, and I fill them in. I have pre-prepared. I filled them in as well on how you like to work, and in that I'm quite honest. I am always very honest. Sometimes some people might say brutally honest, but I will specify that my go-to behavior when someone asks me a question or comes to me with a problem is to answer with a solution. But that is not good for either me or them, and that if they actually want to grow in the role, I would prefer it if they thought about the solution themselves before actually coming to me with a question, so that it becomes a collaborative conversation and we can discuss the best way forward rather than just do this, do that. So whilst I'm trying to work on my ability to stop, I'm also trying to pre-warn people that that's what I am like. And I've had various successes with people who got that message and are actually coming to me with stuff already thought through and solutions already suggested.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I do remember when we were starting to talk about delegation, we worked through, well, what could be the benefits, not just for yourself, but from others. And of course, it's growth and opportunity to try things and gain new experience for the person you're delegating to. And I remember the onboarding process and documents that you put together, including, I think you had questions in there such as, what makes you grumpy?
Yeah. I did that.
I love that. That's brilliant. Because I like the assumption in there. There's a kind of, in NLP terms, it would be called a presupposition, where you're saying that people do get grumpy at work. So that's okay. But it's better for us to know what causes that. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm very, as I said, I'm very honest, because there is no point in beating around the bush. I mean, I have certain personality traits that, thanks to you, have sort of come to light in my conscience. And I know, for example, that maybe also because of the language barrier, I am quite direct, more direct than your average British person, and that could be seen as upsetting by some people. So I have to be quite clear that it's just my way of doing things. And as much as I try to moderate it and modulate it, I don't always manage, particularly when I'm under stress. And so preempting that, telling my new reports, look, it's nothing personal. That's the way I am. And, if you can't work with it, then we need to talk about it. Sort of surfacing it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful way to communicate right from the beginning. You're setting standards of communications right from the start. Because I think you also ask people about, what attributes of the job excite you, what might you be worried about, how would you like to be managed. I think they're really strong foundations for bringing somebody new into a business. And I also do it for people that I might acquire, that might have been in the company for a while but become my reports, even if I have worked with them before. I think when you become someone's manager, it's always important to do that step to check in. So you mentioned the 2 chairs method, the conversation. So can you recall what topic we were discussing back then?
I think we did a few. It would have been probably some conversation with my boss, because clearly, I don't think I am the only one in this, but, managing upwards is a big struggle. And I needed to bring the argument I was trying to make to him in a way that he would be able to hear it. And I was, for example, at the time writing a lot. I was writing big, long emails and so on, but he didn't like reading.
Okay.
So, I'm analytical, so my emails perfectly crafted, bullet points, whatever, this, therefore that, therefore this, conclusion.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't necessarily absorb it because he wasn't someone who likes consuming information in the written format. So I had to sort of do that in conversations. And I don't necessarily want to reveal too much because it's still probably confidential. But it was normally conversations regarding managing upwards.
Yeah. Because you are quite different personality types, aren't you? It's important to think about how you communicate to somebody who's so different from you. And just for the benefit of the listeners, so that the method that we're talking about is this idea of having two chairs. I mentioned it in another podcast episode because somebody else brought it up only a few days ago, actually, where if you need to have a conversation with somebody and you perhaps need to practice it and see how it sits and how it sounds, you would adopt the position that you're likely to sit in around a table, whether you're going to be opposite each other, sat next to each other, so how you usually are together, and then you say the message to the empty chair, and then you stand up, kind of shake yourself off and try and assume the state of the other person. So imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, how they might sit if they cross their legs or cross their arms, and just try and embody being that person, and then just listening to the message that was given and just seeing how that person will receive it and how it will land. And it just gives you this really fantastic perspective that you might not have had otherwise. So it does take a leap of faith to do it, though.
Yeah, particularly in front of your coach, because you then feel really, really conscious.
Yeah, but once you get over that, it is useful, isn't it?
Yeah, very useful.
Very useful, yeah. Are you feeling stuck and need some help moving forwards? At Lighting Fires, I work with business leaders, future leaders and their teams to ignite their full leadership potential. Whether you're a business owner or leading in an organisation, we can work together to create a programme tailored to your priorities. Throughout our coaching together, I see my clients' confidence and capabilities grow as they gain a greater understanding of how they work, learn to make quicker decisions, and develop a vision for their role and a plan on how to get there. Through the challenges and the breakthroughs, you'll have me by your side. Get in touch on LinkedIn or email me, julie@lightingfires.co.uk. Okay, so what more happened in the coaching? Are there other stories you'd like to share?
I think, on the subject of difficult conversations, I don't remember what it was called, but you gave me a framework, which I used to have a difficult conversation with a colleague. And it was really helpful. Again, because I work from home, I could write it all down, have it in front of me when I spoke to that person on Teams. And it really helped me drive the messages home. I mean, it's slightly backfired because at the end that person resigned, but we had already discussed this as a possibility that might happen, and we'd already accepted that that could be actually not a bad outcome. So it sort of helped.
Yeah, it definitely helps to go through all the possible outcomes so you're prepared for whatever might happen. Yeah, and I remember you kind of feeling in the end that it was the right outcome for both parties.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
And we parted amicably. It was, the framework did work in that
brilliant.
sense.
Yeah, well, that's not always the case, is it? So that's really good. So any more critical moments? Anything else that changed? Or was there anything that you would have liked to have got out of the coaching that you didn't get?
No, I actually think that personally, I got at the time everything that I needed and I wanted. there's things that I still carry through today. Like, for example, I started drop-ins for my team, so to try and sort of cluster the interruptions during the day and be able to time box my time and sort of help with the decluttering of the mind. So I do daily drop-ins, half an hour over sort of just before or after lunch, so that people can come and ask me the questions that are not urgent, and they know that they can always catch me.
Yeah. So how would you say that your leadership developed over that period of time? Because I remember that was one of the things that you really wanted to work on. And I guess all of the things we've talked about were all kind of elements of that, and shifting and changing how you approach leadership.
I think I am still me, in the sense that I haven't changed my personality. I'm still someone who sees the problems and wants to solve it. I'm still someone who, when asked, will try to come up with an answer. But I am a lot more aware. These are my traits.
Yeah.
And I am a lot more aware that people might not react to those traits in the way that I feel would be perfectly normal. So I'm sort of more sympathetic towards other people's ways of working, and at least I hope I am.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And what would you say to somebody who is experiencing imposter syndrome?
I don't think you can ever grow out of it. I mean, case in point, right? You contacted me to say, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, why did you want to ask me to do a podcast? What good is it going to be?
You actually started suggesting other people who would be much better.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't think you could ever be cured of it, but you can put things in place to help you sort of overcome it, and, help you realize that, I mean, again, quoting Carol Dweck again, you might not be able to do it right now. You might not feel like you'd be able to do it right now, but with the right tools and the right things in place, you can learn to do it.
Yes, yeah. I love Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset. I think it's so simple and so powerful.
And so underrated as well. I mean, I have a daughter 13 years old at school, and schools are still, from what I can see, not really bought on that whole, at least some of them.
Well, my daughter has heard it so much at school that she told me the other day she is sick of the growth mindset.
I'm pleased about that.
So we have two extremes going on here, don't we?
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask you to pick one of my optional questions. I can see by your face you're dying to do this.
Yeah, very, very sad. Can you think of a metaphor to describe the before and after of the coaching experience itself? I could talk about the butterfly, about the fact that, when you are an ugly caterpillar, I mean, you still got all the elements there to become a beautiful butterfly, but then you need to sort of eat all the plums and the apples and the carrots and all those other things. And those could be your coaching sessions to enable you to then come out at the other end as a beautiful butterfly.
That is beautiful. I love that. So, what's next for you, Sarah?
Well, work is really busy and ever-changing. The company has been acquired by a larger organisation, so there is a lot going on there in terms of scaling up and becoming more, not quite so much like a startup anymore.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I am getting involved in everything to do with risk. I'm learning new skills in that area. And so, that's the next area I'm going to go into. There's loads happening with the team, new reshuffling, new people joining. So it's all very exciting and an opportunity for me to sort of flex these muscles that you have shown me I have got a bit more.
Well, you have them in abundance, I would say. So, Sarah, before you go, are there any podcasts or books that you would like to recommend?
Well, apart from yours, of course. I have actually an absolute favourite book, which has served me well for the past 20 years, which is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And it has had a profound impact on me when I read it 20 years ago, and it continues to do so now. And I think there is a version for teens as well, but it's really not about tips or tricks or tools as such. It's more about principles that are universally applicable to humanity, and not only at work, but in all the different roles that you might have in your life. So it's really a book for life. And what really struck me about it is the fact that it's about personal growth and leading a life with purpose. And the message that I took away, which I continue to apply and has served me as a guide throughout my career and my life as a mother and so on, is that you always have a choice, no matter what happens to you, how powerless you feel, how overwhelmed, you always have a choice to choose your behavior and your reaction, and to choose what you can do with the stuff that you can influence. So recently I've had, for example, quite a lot of stress that was coming from different direction, family mainly, and I did feel overwhelmed for some time, and then remembering this concept from the 7 Habits helped me really start to influence the stuff that I knew I could do, start to reduce my stress levels in areas that might not be in the big sources of stress that I couldn't influence, but I could sort of alleviate the burden little by little. And I'm in a much better place now for that.
That's really useful. I actually think it is these practical tips that are the most useful, actually, aren't they? So thank you for sharing that.
It's okay.
So is there anything more you would like to say before we finish?
Thank you. That's all I can say, really. You were my first, and things that you've given me will stay with me forever.
Oh, thank you. And we've done a lot of fun things since. We've tried to set up an ecology network, haven't we?
You've done well on that, haven't you?
I'm not sure it's done as well as we hoped it would do, but it was fun doing it anyway.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Very much fun.
So hopefully our paths will continue to cross from time to time. Well, thank you, Sarah, for joining me today. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
So did I. Thank you.
So listening back to this episode, I thought I would share a couple of resources that Sarah mentions. The first is the work of Stanford Professor of Psychology Carol Dweck on the growth mindset. So I'd really recommend her TED Talk, but also her book, because it's really powerful and yet so simple, this idea that if we can have this growth mindset and have an attitude of learning when things are difficult, or if we fail at things, that really will make a huge difference to our success ultimately. Sarah also mentions the work of Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, another book that left an impression on both of us. And finally, I thought I'd just reflect on the chemistry between Sarah and I. We were very lucky to have a level of trust from very early on. And I think that allowed us both to take risks and try tools and techniques at very early stages in the working relationship that really paid off. So that's an interesting reflection for me. It might be useful for the coaches out there. And finally, if you're interested in working with me, please contact me at julie@lightingfires.co.uk or on LinkedIn.